April 29, 1975. Saigon was still awake. Not because it wanted to be, but because no one could sleep. The air was thick, humid, heavy, almost suffocating. But beneath that tropical heat was something else. Something invisible, yet undeniable. Fear. Not the loud kind. Not panic in the streets. A quiet, creeping realization that everything was about to end. Inside government buildings, lights were still on. Phones rang unanswered. Papers were left scattered across desks. Coffee cups sat half-finished. People were still there. But the system was already collapsing. For years, the government had stood as a symbol of resistance. A state backed by power, by allies, by promises. But those promises had begun to unravel. Slowly at first. Then, all at once, support faded. Resources dried up. Confidence eroded. Officials who once spoke with certainty now whispered in hallways. Plans were made, then abandoned. Orders were given, then ignored. What remained was not a functioning government. It was an illusion held together by routine, denial, and hope that tomorrow might somehow be different. The most terrifying collapses don't happen with explosions. They happen quietly. One official fails to show up. Another begins packing personal belongings. A third sends his family away, just in case. No announcement is made. No warning is given. But everyone feels it. The system is no longer working. And yet, no one says it out loud. Behind closed doors, final decisions were being made. Not about saving the country. Not about turning the tide. But about survival. Who would leave first? Who would stay behind? Who could be trusted? Who could not? These were not strategic discussions. They were personal calculations. And in those moments, the idea of a unified government ceased to exist. In the distance, there were sounds, not loud enough to dominate the city, but close enough to be heard. Helicopters, movement, change. Every sound carried meaning. Every silence carried dread. The city wasn't just listening, it was waiting. April 30th, 1975. Morning arrived. But nothing felt new. The sky looked the same. The streets looked the same. But something fundamental had shifted. There were fewer officials at their posts, fewer guards at entrances, fewer answers to simple questions. The structure still stood, but the people inside it were disappearing. Doors, once guarded, were now open. Rooms once filled with authority were now silent. Desks abandoned. Files left behind. Phones ringing into emptiness. This was not an evacuation. It was a vanishing. No coordination. No clear order. Just individuals. Leaving. One by one. At the highest levels, leadership still existed, but only in form. Decisions were made, but carried no weight. Orders were issued, but went unanswered. The authority remained. The power did not. And in that gap, the system broke completely. Not everyone left. Some couldn't. Some wouldn't. Some didn't believe it was truly over. They stayed at their posts, waiting for instructions that would never come. Loyalty had nothing left to hold on to. Outside, the city observed. People noticed the changes. The absence, the quiet, the lack of control. Rumors spread faster than facts. But the truth didn't need to be spoken. It was visible everywhere. The government was no longer functioning. Symbols matter. Flags, buildings, voices, and one by one, those symbols began to disappear, not destroyed. not attacked, simply abandoned. And when symbols vanish, belief follows. There was no grand announcement, no formal declaration that everything was over, no moment where the system said goodbye. It simply stopped. A government that had once controlled millions no longer controlled anything. For those still inside, the realization came differently. Some understood instantly, others refused to believe it. But eventually, everyone saw it. There was no leadership, no coordination, no future plan. The government hadn't fallen in battle. It had dissolved. In the final hours, leaving became the only action that mattered. Not as officials, not as representatives, but as individuals. The structure was gone. All that remained were people trying to escape its collapse. When something disappears, something else takes its place. Not immediately, not cleanly, but inevitably. Power doesn't vanish. It transfers, and in that moment, control shifted, not with ceremony, but with silence. By the time it was over, there was nothing left to dismantle. No resistance, no final stand, because there was no system left to defend. The government hadn't been defeated. It had already disappeared, not through one event, not through one decision, but through accumulation, small failures, lost trust, broken systems. And when enough pieces fall apart, the whole structure collapses without a single dramatic moment. History often remembers explosions, battles, defining moments, but sometimes the most significant events happen quietly. A government doesn't always fall with force. Sometimes it simply vanishes, overnight, and by the time anyone fully understands what happened, there's nothing left.